Well, today we kick off Missions Month, and I want to start by talking about God's heart for mission. You know, I've heard a lot recently, especially in politics, when sort of politics and religion get involved with each other, where people say, you know, God has no favorites. You know, God treats everybody equal. We must never, ever treat anybody as more important or more precious than anyone else. You know, God treats everyone equally. That is absolutely not true. We are not treated equally by God at all. God has bias towards the poor. He has bias towards the lost. He has bias towards the broken. And while he loves everybody and cares for everybody, his incredible passion is for those who are disadvantaged and the sick and the oppressed and those suffering injustice. He cares about the widows, the orphans, and the mentally unwell. You cannot go through Scripture anywhere in the Old Testament or the New Testament and escape that his bias is towards the poor. And Jesus and God the Father in the Old Testament identify themselves with the poor. They never really identify themselves with those who are doing well. They identify themselves with those who are struggling. And we see it multiple times in the Old and New Testament. In Proverbs 14:31, it says, those who oppress the poor insult their maker, but helping the poor honors God. And it also said that if we really want to make God happy, we will look after the poor. Proverbs 19 verse 17, if you help the poor, you're lending to the Lord, he will repay you. God says, if you care about people who are at the bottom of the rung, I will consider that you're being kind to me. When Jesus announced his mission on earth, the first thing he said when he was telling people what he was sent to do was this, in Luke 14:18, first words, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. Jesus and the gospel are good news to the poor, and we, his people, should be good news to the poor as well. And we know that as well as the poor, part of the category of the poor is the lost. Jesus spent an enormous amount of time talking about the fact that he had come to seek and save lost people. In Luke chapter 15, he tells three stories back to back. The first story, and an image will come up, is of the shepherd that has 99 sheep, and he leaves the 99 to go and search for one that is lost. You could say, well, he's not treating them equally. He's not, because he's leaving the most because one of them has captured his heart, and that's the lost one. And Jesus said in Luke chapter 15, verse 7, in the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. See, God's heart is always looking and searching for those who are lost and hurting and broken. And the Bible expects us, his followers, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, to have the same care for the lost and the poor. Jesus constantly taught all the time about how we need to preach the gospel and care for the poor. Both are equally important. It is incomplete to preach the gospel without caring for the poor. And it's incomplete to care for the poor without preaching the gospel. And Jesus said, and this is in multiple places, that when we die, we will be judged according to how we have cared for the lost and the poor. That's pretty scary. And I'm going to quote a few verses from Jesus. So this is not me making it up. These are not the opinions of David J. MacGregor. These are just quoting Jesus. And the things that I love about Jesus is when he talks about Judgment Day, when he talks about when we stand before him, he's already given us the answers to all the questions. Isn't that good? You remember at school, you were about to do exams and the teachers would give you a mock test and give you an idea what was going to be in the exam. We actually had a naughty teacher once that actually gave us the actual exam that we had the day before we actually sat it, and we were surprised to see, I think she was a bit worried we hadn't learned as much as we should. So she actually gave us the literal exam the day before, so we had a good practice. But Jesus actually warns us. He says, this is what I'm going to say to you when you stand before me. And Jesus says when everybody comes before him, he's going to divide everybody up into the sheep and goats. Those who are the good ones are those who are the sheep, and those who are the bad ones. I don't know why he doesn't like goats, but anyway, goats, I love little goats. But anyway, he's just doing an illustration here. And he says, this is the words of Jesus in Matthew 25:32. All the nations will be gathered in his presence, and he will separate the people as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will place the sheep on his right hand and his goats on the left. And then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited me. And then the righteous ones will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink, or a stranger and show you hospitality, or naked and give you clothing? When did we ever see you sick or in prison and visit you? And the king will say, I tell you the truth, when you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you were doing it to me. See, here's another passage where Jesus is identifying with the poor. And he's saying, I won't go on to say what he said to the goats, but he's saying, I identify with the poor. When you look after them, you are pleasing me, you're ministering to me. And I want to note there, it's not just about money. You know, in missions time, we do raise money to give to missions, but this is not about money. You know, it doesn't cost money to necessarily to go and visit somebody in prison. It doesn't necessarily cost money to go and visit a sick person or to help a widow or an orphan or whatever. So it's not about money. It's to do with our heart attitude. It's actually about caring about people, using the resources that we have to visit people and care for the people around us. My dear mum is in the hospital part of a rest home, and all of her worldly belongings have come down to one tiny little closet. And she called me during the week and she said, darling, doesn't Jesus say in the Bible that if you've got 2 pieces of clothing and somebody doesn't have one, that you give one of yours? And I said, yes, it does say that. She said, forgets exactly where all the sayings come from. And she said, but there's a lady that's seen one of my cardies and I do have 2 of them. Do you think I should give one of them to her? And so I said, Mum, that sounds lovely. Let's talk about it when I get in. So we haven't quite had a chat about that yet. But I thought, isn't this the heart that God has? That if we have something and we see somebody that is without, we would hand that thing over. You know, I want to tell you today, and this is important, that caring for the poor is not an option. Not just for Christians, but all of humanity. It's not an option. It is a responsibility. We cannot be ambivalent to the poor. Jesus tells a very scary story in Luke chapter 16, 19 to 28. Jesus said, there was a certain rich man who was splendidly clothed in purple and fine linen and who lived each day in luxury. At his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus who was covered with sores. As Lazarus lay there longing for scraps from the rich man's table, the dogs would come and lick his open sores. Finally, the poor man died and was carried by the angels to sit beside Abraham at the heavenly banquet. The rich man also died and was buried. He saw Abraham in the far distance with Lazarus at his side. The rich man shouted, Father Abraham, have some pity. Send Lazarus over here to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue. I'm in anguish in these flames. But Abraham said to him, and this is the key part, Son, remember that during your lifetime you had everything you wanted, and Lazarus had nothing. So now he is here being comforted, and you are in anguish. And besides, there is a great chasm separating us. No one can cross over from you to here, and no one can cross over to us from there. Then the rich man said, Please, Father Abraham, at least send him to my father's home, for I have 5 brothers, and I want him to warn them so that they don't end up in this place of torment. Wow. What a powerful story. Once again, these are the words of Jesus. This isn't some prosperity preacher speaking, this is Jesus. And I want to point out here, it doesn't anywhere say that the rich man was cruel or unkind or doing anything illegal. He was just indifferent. He was apathetic. There was a person right at his door who was poor, and the rich man didn't feel that was his problem. You know, he was probably a lovely man, probably a very well-respected businessman. He'd obviously done very well. He was probably very kind to his family. A lot of people say to me, you know, I look after my family well. The Bible says even the evil people look after their families. But the key thing here, the key part of the story is he didn't care for the poor. He did not care. He didn't feel that a person in poverty right in front of his nose was his responsibility. But Jesus thought differently. Jesus said to him, you are here because you had a lot and there were people around you that had nothing right in front of your nose, and you did nothing. You did nothing. You didn't use any of your resources for those who were poor. And the story is a warning to us. We are going to stand before God and he's going to ask us, what did you do with your time, talents, money, resources? What did you do for the lost and the poor? We may think to ourselves, well, we've got a government. You know, in those days, they didn't have a social welfare system. I've heard people say that. I pay my taxes. Doesn't wash with God. They paid taxes in those days as well. Well, you know, how did he get into that position? I mean, obviously he made some really bad life choices. God doesn't care. Doesn't matter how we get poor. Doesn't matter how we end up where we are. God gives us the responsibility to take care of people. We're not to judge how people get into a certain situation. But what about his family? God will judge them as well. God says, what about you? And you know, it's not just the money that we have and the resources that we have, because we are in a country that's in the top 1% of wealth in the whole world. But we have the treasure of the gospel. We have the treasure of salvation. Imagine knowing that Jesus saves people, that people give, that Jesus gives eternal life. Imagine holding on to that truth and not caring about people directly in front of us, that we could share that wonderful treasure with them as well. Do you know, because this is the heart of Jesus, it must be the heart of the church. We can't just come along and sing songs and lift our hands and worship God if there are people in poverty around us. So mission is two aspects. It is evangelism, sharing about Jesus, and it is the care of the poor. Both are equally important because people need to have the gospel, otherwise they don't have salvation. And they need to be looked after, otherwise they can't hear because they're so hungry. Famous missionary Don Richardson from YWAM was preaching to the poor at one stage. His photo will come up on the screen. And he was preaching in the open air about Jesus, and there was a poor man nearby, and he called out to him, how can I listen to what you say about God when my stomach is empty? And Don realized that before he preached the gospel, he needed to take care of some of the practical needs of the people around. That many times it's the practical things that we do that open people's hearts to the gospel. And Don realized at that stage that it was not just the word of God that was important, but the works of God as well. For many, many decades, maybe even centuries, the church has been divided into two parts. Those who preach the word of God and those that do the works of God. And so often the evangelical church has been great at preaching the gospel and having altar calls and winning people to Jesus. And there's been the more liberal side of the church that has been focused on what they call the social gospel and looking after the poor and caring for the poor. Those things should never have been separated. They should never. And the Salvation Army is a wonderful example of a mission that started out doing both. That was probably in modern times the beginning of people that preached the gospel and had the social gospel as well. So we're not just going to preach to you, but we're going to care about the poor as well. And very much in the Vineyard, we say these things too are combined. John Wimber was always saying the gospel is both the word and the works. You cannot separate those two things. It's got to be those two things working hand in hand. So every church on the planet should be preaching the gospel, but also they should be caring for the lost and the poor. And a church, a good church, a Jesus-centered church should be sending people out all the time to reach the lost and the poor as well. One of the things I love about churches is that we get to do missions as a team. Isn't that cool? That's the way God designed it to be. You know, we can look around, even around our city, around our nation, and look overseas, and it is just completely overwhelming, all the need. Where would you even start to make a difference? But the great thing is that as churches, God has designed it that we use our gifts and talents and abilities to work together. Some people are great business people, and they've got brains that can say, this is how we can change a town or a city or a country. Other people have finance and they say, you know what, I'll concentrate on making money and I'll give it over here to you. Other people are prayer warriors. I'm going to intercede into the heavenlies and I'm going to work that way. Other people are skilled in trades and they say, you guys pray and raise the money and come up with a good plan. Send me in there and we're going to build an orphanage or build a church or whatever. And we've got all those types of people here. Many times people over there, as we've established churches or helped churches, they say, we need teaching. And we're sending a team over to Mozambique. John and SJ and a few others are going over there to do some practical things and do some teaching and preaching and equipping leaders with Timmy as well. You know, we have sent people to do building and people that are in the construction industry many times in the past. And so it's not just about the money of it. What it is it's working together as a team. That's what I love about working together as a church. And that's where large churches have an advantage. If you're just a tiny wee group, you know, you can pray and maybe you can do one or two little things. But when we're a large group like we are, we can actually take projects and really change a village or change a city or change a nation. And you will know that over the years, even in recent years, we've put, you know, over $1 million into missions. So this faith promise that we do, every year we raise over $250,000. And then with our building fund that we do as well, we give 1/10 of all the money that comes in. So you know the building project that we're doing in Churham Street, a picture will come up on the screen if you're not familiar with it. As we raise money for that, we give 1/10, we give a tithe to missions and especially focus it on buildings overseas in majority world countries. So over the years, we have built churches, prayer houses, or not completely always built the whole thing, although sometimes we contributed to community centres, orphanages, mentor houses, sports grounds, schools, medical centres, and a whole bunch of other things as well. So enormous amounts of money that are going out. But we're doing things locally and we're doing them overseas as well. And I just love the fact that we get to do it together. We make a difference together. So this season that we're coming into now, we're asking for a number of things. One is we want you to pray. Secondly, we want you to get the little booklet, and if you're watching online, you can go to our website and see all the missionaries that we support and what's going on. But during this time especially, we ask that you would make a commitment to give over this next year specifically to our missions. And people are incredibly generous in our church giving towards missions. And every year the amount goes up that's given. Every year we increase the number of projects that we do. And it's exciting seeing, after we've been doing this for 27 years, it's exciting to see all the things that have changed. So you will see those little pledge forms that will appear in the next couple of weeks, and we would love to invite you to prayerfully think about what you may be able to give over the next year. I want to close today by telling you about a couple of friends of ours who live in the United States. Dave and Shannon Edmondson live in California, And Dave, both of them have been a great inspiration to us over the years. Dave was a very successful businessman, very happy family, lovely big home, and 5 great kids. And when he hit upon middle age, somebody gave him the book Half Time by a guy called Bob Buford. And this is especially good for men, but it's good for anybody. It's a really powerful book. I read it a number of years ago, really inspired me. I think every guy especially should read this when you come towards, 30 plus. And basically, the key part of the book is it talks to you about middle age, and it talks to you about the fact that the first half of your life is taken up with building a career, getting skills, getting money, establishing your family, getting house and all the different things. But when you get to mid-age, you're not quite so interested. You want your life to mean something. So basically, he says the first part of your life is about success, and the second part of your life is about significance. And that will come up on the screen. Basically what he says is that you come to a certain stage where just success of making money and getting a house is not enough for your heart. You start asking yourself, what do I want to leave behind? What do I want to do that's outside my family? What do I want to be remembered for? Do I just want to be remembered that I built a great business and I had a lot of money and lots of toys? Or do I want to do something that's really significant? So Dave read this book and he prayed to God and he said, Lord, I want to do something significant. And God spoke to him and he said, just 2 hours from your house, there's a very poor country, Mexico, and it has an enormous number of orphans. Go down and have a look. So we went down and he went to some of the places, the horrible places actually, where some of the orphans and people that come from broken homes are housed, and it absolutely broke his heart. Some of the places are like prisons, and he saw all these beautiful children through no fault of their own that were in these terrible places. And there were just nowhere enough orphanages. And so he decided that what he was going to do is try to do a business where he could make as much money as he could so he could pour it into missions. So he started flipping houses. He worked out that by buying houses, doing them up and selling them, he could make money. And he would pour as much of that money as he possibly could into building an orphanage. And so that's what they've done. They've built an orphanage, which has been tremendously successful. And we as a church have poured a lot of money into here. A lot of what he does is getting a lot of churches and Christians and builders and all sorts of people to come in and help do this. And then recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, he discovered another problem, that when the orphans get to a certain age, when they go beyond school age, they've got nowhere to go. So basically, after school, when they finish school, they say, okay, see you later. We don't have room for you anymore. You go out and hope everything goes well. And then a lot of the orphans or, kids that are disadvantaged, they actually get into trouble. And he thought, they've got no home to come back to. So he had this vision to have a mentoring. I just add too, they adopted 3 Mexican kids themselves that they gave a home to in the United States. But they've created this mentor home, and they just opened it in the last couple of weeks. And basically they can take 24 young people, and it's not just from their own orphanage, but other orphanages as well. And they want to build a whole lot of these things where they get taught and discipled about Jesus. They have people that come in and teach them life skills and budgeting and cooking and all those sorts of things. They get them into jobs and they direct them so their lives will go well. And they're allowed to stay there as long as they like until they get themselves on their feet. So he's seen that many orphanages have reached out and said, hey, we need to have this sort of thing as well. I want to tell you, from the last few months, we sent a few $100,000 to help complete this. We paid for all the tiles, we paid for all the glass, and when I say glass, the windows, and all the doors and things as well to help. So this is one of many things that we've helped out of many, many, many different projects. So here's Dave, who's thanking us and giving us a wee tour around before the whole place was opened.
Grace Vineyard, I want to say a massive thank you. You guys have sown into the life of Rancho La Hermosa Orphanage in Mexico that we have the privilege of leading along with our Mexican partners. And now You're looking at another endeavor that you've helped us with. We call this the Mentor Home. This is a place where kids aging out of orphanages have an opportunity to learn more about life, education, character development, spiritual formation. This is something that you guys have helped us with so much. We're so grateful. You gave us a recent gift that covered all the windows, all the tile, all the doors to a beautifully gorgeous, large home that will house 24 young adults aging out of orphanages in the region. Thank you so much. Come on in. Grace Vineyard, thank you so much. We love you guys. We're so grateful for you, and we're so appreciative of your generosity. Thank you so much.
Now, I know that looks like the Riviera there, but it's actually a very poor area. We have been there, and in the roads are generally, there's potholes everywhere. I won't go through all the stories. You have to take sanitizer everywhere you go. It's an interesting spot, but just to see lives changing. And this is just one of multiple projects that we have in majority world countries. And all the people that we're involved with are Christian people who are not only helping with practical needs, but also bringing the gospel as well. I've got to just tell you one other story. The first time we got involved with Dave and Shannon, we saw they were still building their orphanage. And I said to them, what could we as a church contribute to that would really make a difference, that would please these kids? He said, nobody wants to put money towards this, but he said the best thing you could do is buy them a football field, because he said they just love sport, and we'd want, one with all the Astro turf and all that sort of stuff. So I said, well, how much would that cost? And he said, 40,000 American. I said, I'm sure we can do it. So we paid 40,000 American. And the next time I went there, they've got this amazing football field, and it's they're jealous all around the region. It is the only sports field all the way around the whole region. And every time we've been and seen photos and videos, these kids just play on this field the whole time. And I thought, we could do wells, which is good, and we've done those. We can do schools and all the other things, but bringing joy to those kids was something that I know touches the Father's heart. So this is Missions Month, and we want God to touch all of our hearts as we expand this important part.
Spirit of wisdom, open my eyes again. Spirit of revelation, open my heart. Spirit of wisdom, open my eyes again. Spirit of revelation, open my heart again. 'Cause I wanna see you, Lord. I wanna see you rightly, Jesus. I wanna see you, Lord. I wanna see you rightly, Jesus. Spirit of wisdom, open my eyes again. Spirit of revelation, open my heart again. Spirit of wisdom, open my eyes rightly, Jesus. I know you're